Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. Take off your headset for a second. He hit mute and turned in his chair like I had just pulled the plug on him. The game sounds kept bleeding out faintly from the ear cups around his neck. For a breath we only stared at each other, and I felt the night tilt. I am Mia, 32, and I knew this was not about bills or dishes. His eyes were already somewhere else, like the conversation had started in his head hours before. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and realize the argument already happened without you? That is exactly where I stood, in my own living room, a stranger at my own trial. I need to say something, and I need you to actually listen. He rubbed his thumb over the edge of his controller, slow and nervous. That small movement hit me harder than the words because Evan never fidgeted. Whatever this was, he had rehearsed it enough to wear grooves in plastic. "Are you sick or something?" I tried to joke and it came out wrong. My joke just hung there between us, heavy and useless. He swallowed and shook his head, and my stomach flipped because that somehow felt worse. If it was not his body, then it was his heart, and that scared me more. I do not think I can do this one-person thing anymore. He let the words drop like he was throwing out a random idea. My brain heard them and refused entry, like a bouncer at the wrong club. I waited for the punchline because this sounded like a bad podcast topic. "What does that even mean?" My hands tucked under my arms to stop shaking. He took a breath like he was about to dive and not come back the same. "I think we should open the marriage so I can still live." There it was, neat and prepared, like he had practiced the exact sentence in the shower. I actually laughed, one sharp sound that startled both of us. Open marriage sounded like something influencers posted about with matching captions. Not something my husband pitched while his game lobby waited in the background. "That is not funny, Evan." My voice cracked on his name and I hated that. "I am serious, I am really not okay right now." He pushed the chair back a little, like he needed more room to breathe. "Every day feels the same and I feel like I am dying inside." He would later say he did not mean it as a threat, but it landed like one. I remember thinking about traffic and work and groceries while he talked about dying. The split between those thoughts and his words made me feel insane. "I love you, I do, but it is like something in me is starving." He looked at me like I was supposed to understand what he was trying to feed. "Are you asking for a divorce?" The question crawled out before I could tame it. His eyes widened fast, like that option had not even crossed his mind. "No, that is what I am trying to avoid here." He leaned toward me, palms up, like he was offering a deal, not a bomb. "So you want to stay married and date other people?" Saying it out loud made my tongue feel numb, like I bit into ice. "Not date around, not like that, it is just one person." There was our first crack of honesty, quiet and almost casual, and my chest tightened. My brain grabbed that phrase and would not let go, just one person. When someone says that with that soft voice, you know the someone already exists. "Who?" It came out flat and low, not dramatic, more like a test. He looked down at his hands, and that silence answered before he spoke. "She is a friend from the game, we talk a lot." He shrugged like it was a small thing, an online buddy, nothing dramatic. "We connected, it just happened, I did not plan it." Those 3 lines are basically the national anthem of people who cheat. Back then I still tried to give him the best possible angle. I told myself it might be a tiny crush. He decided to confess early. "Okay, but is this flirting or are you in some kind of deep thing?" My throat burned while I waited because there is a special terror in that difference. It is emotional mostly, I guess, like we know each other really well. He kept his gaze on the floor, like he was reading a script down there. "We talk late, we vent, she gets me, and I do not get that from anyone else." That line sank into my bones because I used to be the one who understood him. "Have you met in person?" I forced each word out like a separate pill. He shook his head too quickly, like he had practiced that part most. "No, not yet, it is online, it is just feelings." As if feelings could not wreck a life more thoroughly than bodies ever could. He reached for me then, fingers brushing my wrist, and I almost pulled away. "We could make rules, we could do this in a healthy way." He kept talking about honesty and agreements and how people do this all the time. It sounded like he was pitching a new streaming service, not rewriting our vows. You want me to sit here while you fall for someone else? My voice came out thin and high, and I barely recognized it. I am already there. That is the problem, and I do not know how to shut it off. He finally looked straight at me, and there was no joke in his eyes. If you have ever watched someone you love admit that out loud, you know the split. Half of you wants to shake them until the spell breaks somehow. The other half wants to crawl out of your own skin and disappear. I stood there and did neither, which is a choice I still judge. I did not hide it from you, I am telling you now. He pointed at his headset, like the fact that she lived in that device made it cleaner. I could have done this behind your back, I am trying to be honest. That argument almost worked on me because I wanted so badly to believe I was still chosen. So if I say no, what happens to your honesty? I took a step back and his chair wheels squeaked like the room flinched with us. He hesitated, that tiny pause where the truth wrestled with the story he wanted to sell. I do not know, I am scared I will break or just leave. There it was, the shape of the threat without the exact words. He did not say he would walk out, he just placed the possibility between us. That is not fair, you know that is not fair. My hands were shaking so hard I tucked them into my pockets to stop the tremor. I know it is not, I know this is a lot, but I cannot pretend anymore. His voice dropped to almost a whisper, and I hated that it still sounded gentle. I need this chance with her, and I want my life with you too. He wanted to keep the house and the history and still chase whatever glow she gave him. In that moment I tried to picture both futures and could not finish either. One where I agreed and learned to swallow jealousy like medicine every day. One where I refused and he packed a bag and logged in from somewhere else. My chest hurt in a way that had nothing to do with romance and everything to do with survival. Can I think about it? The words surprised me as much as they seemed to calm him. His shoulders loosened like I had already agreed, like the hardest part was over. Yeah, of course, take your time, we can talk more tomorrow. He unmuted the headset and spun back to his screen, like we had just discussed a schedule change. Voices from the game spilled out again, cheerful and loud, while my world shrank. Someone in his lobby joked about almost dying in match, and he laughed along easily. I watched the back of his head and realized he could still slip into fun that fast. I backed out of the room and felt like I was the ghost in this house. In the bathroom, I locked the door with a click that sounded too small. I sat on the edge of the tub and opened my phone with numb fingers. My search bar filled itself because my hands already knew the words he had planted. How to have an open marriage without ruining everything. Article after article loaded, full of cheerful bullet points about radical honesty. They all insisted you needed rock-solid trust before you even considered this path. I stared at that phrase and felt the bitter laugh climb up again and stop. We were about to test our foundation by taking a sledgehammer to it and calling that growth. Back then I still thought maybe this was a crossroads we could manage somehow. That if I just learned the language and played along, I could keep my life. Now writing this, I see the truth I dodged that night so desperately. He was not asking for a new chapter in our marriage, he was asking for permission to start a second story while leaving mine unfinished. His phone lit up on the table and he dove for it. The match on the TV kept running, his character idle in the corner. He barely glanced at the screen before flipping it over, face down. That tiny move told me more than his whole speech the night before. We had not decided anything yet. That was the official story. In practice, we were in some weird test run where I pretended this was just a phase. He played more, talked more, laughed more, and none of that energy landed near me. I tried to keep my eyes on the game and not his hands. He leaned back, thumb tracing patterns over the phone case like it was a stress toy. Another buzz, quick and sharp, and the smallest smile pulled at his mouth. You do not grin like that at a spam message. New patch dropped, everyone is losing their minds. He spoke toward the TV, not toward me, like that counted as conversation. Cool, I picked at a loose thread on my jeans to keep from snapping. I wanted to ask who had texted, but that would make me the jealous cop. Over the next days, his whole schedule shifted without a real plan. He stayed glued to his chair past midnight, sometimes into early morning. Whenever I walked by, the headset mic would suddenly lift away from his mouth. It looked casual at first, then it started to look like hiding. He set his phone to silent around me, which he had never bothered to do. When I reached for it once to check the time, he cut in too fast. "I got it. Battery is low." The way he snatched it made my chest tighten, stupid and instant. I told myself I was paranoid. I told myself I was still processing the whole open arrangement topic. I told myself normal couples lived with separate passwords and private chats. That is the kind of nonsense you feed your brain when you are terrified of the real answer. One evening, I walked into the office with a basket of laundry on my hip. He was in the middle of a match, shouting into the mic, eyes locked on the screen. I stepped behind his chair, planning to drop the clothes and leave. That was when a small notification appeared in the corner of his monitor. It was brief and bright, a pop from some chat overlay. A small heart icon, then a name I had never seen before, short and playful. My brain took a snapshot before he could react. He flicked his mouse, the message vanished, and my stomach dipped hard. "Hey, can you not stand there? I am getting stream sniped." His tone came out irritated, then quickly softened like he realized he had pushed too far. "Just distracts me, this match is ranked." I mumbled an apology even though I had done nothing wrong, which still annoys me now. I folded shirts in the hallway, replaying that little heart over and over. It could have been anyone, that is what I tried to tell myself. A teammate, some inside joke, something harmless and dumb. But I knew the rhythm of his body when he was just playing, and this felt different. After that, the name started showing up everywhere once I started noticing. On his Discord sidebar when I passed the doorway, always glowing near the top. On his phone lock screen, hidden under generic notification labels he never bothered with before. Once even on his watch, a quick buzz and that same little nickname flashing up his wrist. He became careful, but not quite careful enough. He minimized windows whenever I stepped into the room, pretending to check settings. He angled the monitor slightly away from the door, claiming the light bothered him. All tiny adjustments that might mean nothing alone, but stacked up, they shouted. I tried one more honest route before I crossed any lines. "How are you doing with everything, really, not just game stuff?" He clicked through menus, eyes forward, fingers moving without pause. "I am fine, just grinding, trying to keep my mind off heavy things. I noticed you are always talking to someone lately." I kept my voice as neutral as I could manage, which was not very. "Same squad as always, nothing dramatic, we are just queuing more." He finally glanced over, then looked away fast, and that quick dodge told me plenty. At night I woke up to empty space next to me more often than not. I would lie there listening, hearing faint laughter through the wall. Sometimes his voice dropped into that gentle register he used to save for me. Every time it happened, I stared at the ceiling and swallowed the urge to storm in. Have you ever argued with yourself in the dark? One side of me chanted that checking his devices would make me the villain. The other side hissed that he had already smashed the trust himself. Both sides were loud, so I did nothing and just lay there burning. The moment that broke my restraint was stupidly ordinary. He left for a quick shower one afternoon between matches, towels slung over his shoulder. His laptop sat open on the desk, the cursor blinking on the screen. I walked past twice, heart pounding like the computer might bite me. On the third pass I stopped. Water drummed down the hallway, steady and distant. I told myself I would just check if he was really talking to only one person. That is the level of denial I was working with that day. I slid into his chair, the wheels squeaking under my weight. Discord was already open on the desktop, because of course it was. The chat list lined the side, names I recognized from his usual group. Near the top sat her handle, the same one from the notifications highlighted. My hand shook over the mouse so badly I had to grip the edge of the desk. I clicked the conversation like it might explode. The window expanded, and their history filled the screen in neat little bubbles. For a second my vision blurred, but I forced myself to focus on the words. I will not write every line because my stomach still clenches when I recall them. Little jokes about work, about raids, about people on voice chat. Mixed in were softer moments, him unloading fears he never voiced near me. Mixed in were her replies, full of hearts and pet names and promise. He had told her I was distant. He had told her our relationship felt like a business arrangement now. He had written that I would be happier if he had someone else to vent to deeply. Reading that, I felt this hot mix of betrayal and humiliation land in my chest. I scrolled further back and the tone shifted from friendly to intense. There were late-night confessions, timest. Imps long after I had fallen asleep alone. He wrote that she was the reason he logged on at all. She wrote that he was her favorite person, online or offline, and my jaw clenched. Then I reached the line that finally knocked the air out of me. He had typed that he was in love with her and did not know what to do. She had answered that she felt the same and did not want to wreck his home. Seeing those exact words felt like standing in my own doorway while strangers argued about my life. Time got weird for a second. I was half convinced he would burst into the room dripping water and rage. At the same time, I could not stop scrolling, like pain had turned into gravity. The more I read, the more it was clear this was not some little crush. He had drawn maps of their future in those messages. They joked about meeting at conventions, about sharing hotel rooms, about travel. They talked about how to handle me, how to pitch this arrangement. My name sat in their chat like a logistics problem, not a partner. Adrenaline finally cut through the fog and screamed at me to move. I grabbed my phone and snapped quick photos of the screen, thumb frantic. Then I opened my own email and sent myself the most recent messages. It felt like dragging a body out of a burning building, messy and desperate. The water stopped down the hall, sudden and loud. My whole body jolted, and I nearly dropped the phone. I closed the chat, moved the cursor back to some random server list, exited to the desktop. Then I pushed the chair back exactly where it had been, like that would erase my fingerprints. By the time he stepped into the doorway, I was in the kitchen. I gripped a glass under the faucet, trying not to flood the counter. "Everything good, lobby is about to start." He walked past me, damp hair dripping onto the floor, completely relaxed. "Yeah, I am just grabbing water, go win your match." My voice sounded almost normal, which honestly horrifies me now. He planted a quick kiss on top of my head on his way back. That tiny affectionate gesture felt so out of sync with what I had just read that my stomach flipped. He settled back at his setup, headset already sliding into place. From the hallway, I watched him laugh with his team like nothing had shifted. I knew his secret now, and he had no idea the ground had moved under us. There is a strange power in that imbalance, and it scared me more than it comforted me. Later that evening, when he went out to pick up takeout, I opened my email. The screenshot sat there lined up, waiting like a file of charges. I zoomed in on one where he described me as checked out and cold. I stared at that sentence until my eyes stung, then finally let myself cry. I wish I could say I confronted him that night, that I marched in and laid it all out. Instead, I wiped my face, closed the messages, and hid my phone. I told myself I needed a strategy, not an explosion. Looking back, I know I was just terrified he would choose her if I pushed too hard. So I played along for a while, pretending not to know. I watched his handle light up next to hers, listened to his late laughs, waited. Every small lie he told after that stuck to the evidence I already had. By the time I finally confronted him, the story was no longer about suspicion, it was about how long I could watch myself twist before I snapped. I put his laptop on the table and opened their chat. He walked in with a drink in his hand and stopped mid-step. "Sit down," my voice came out calm, and it scared both of us. The screen glowed between us, full of words he never meant me to read. He set the glass down too hard and liquid sloshed over the edge. "Why are you on my stuff?" His shoulders tensed like he was bracing for impact. I scrolled up slow on purpose, like turning a knife. "You wanted honesty, here it is on the screen." "You invaded my privacy." He reached for the laptop, fingers twitching near the edge. I pulled it closer to me and tapped one particular message. "Is this private enough for you?" The sentence where he told her he loved her glared up. His hand dropped back like he had touched something burning. For a moment he just stared, breathing shallow, jaw tight. "It is not what you think." That useless line left his mouth anyway. You typed that you are in love with her, what else is there to think? My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my gums. He dragged a chair back and sank into it, eyes fixed on the keyboard. We got close, it went further than it should, I was going to tell you. You already did tell me, remember, open marriage so you can still live. My laugh came out sharp and ugly and he winced. We never meant to hurt you, he rubbed his temples with both hands. You are using plural now, that is cute, I pointed to another line. You told her our marriage was basically done, did you practice that before or improvise? He flinched like the words were new, even though he wrote them. In that moment I felt two versions of myself fighting. One that wanted to scream until neighbors knocked or cops came. Another that wanted to curl up under the table and pretend none of this existed. Instead I sat upright and forced my voice to stay almost level. How long has this been going on? Real answer, no speeches. He blew out a breath and looked at the ceiling like it might help. Since last winter we clicked in a ranked game, then we kept queuing together. A few months had just turned into something way bigger in one sentence. You told me this was recent, you sat across from me and called it new. My nails dug into my own palm under the table. I did not know it would turn into this, it started casual and then feelings showed up. He talked like they were weather, not choices. Do you two video call? My tongue felt heavy asking that. He hesitated, the beat a little too long, then gave a small nod. Sometimes after matches, just to hang out and talk. Clothes on, the question dropped before I could stop it. His ears flushed red and he stared at the table. Mostly, yeah, we messed up a few times, I am not proud of that. Hearing that sucked the air out of the room worse than I expected. My chest felt tight, like something metal was pressing from the inside. I pushed the laptop toward him now, my turn to lean back. So this is not just emotional and you know it. He ran a hand over his face, tired and guilty and still somehow defensive. It is not like I am out at bars hooking up, it is one person. I hated how reasonable that almost sounded if you did not think too hard. One person you are fully attached to while married while living here. I could hear my own voice shaking and it annoyed me. He focused on that instead of the actual betrayal, which was easier for him. You broke my trust first by snooping, you know that. He gestured at the laptop like it was the real crime. Do not flip this on me, I checked because my instincts were screaming. I slammed my hand on the table, and the sound made both of us jump. Silence stretched for a few seconds, loud and thick. Do you two have plans to meet? I want you to answer that clearly. He inhaled like a diver again, which at that point was a bad sign. We talked about a convention weekend, we thought it would be neutral ground. My pulse pounded in my ears so hard I barely heard him. You bought tickets, it was not a question, not really. His gaze dropped to his pocket for a flicker, straight to where his phone rested. That tiny glance told me more than any yes or no. I snatched his phone before he could react and unlocked it with his code. Old habit shared years ago, thrown back in his face now. In his email there it was, confirmation for passes, hotel, travel dates. My throat closed for a second and I tasted metal. You planned a trip with your gamer soulmate while I washed your clothes. My voice sounded rough, like it came from someone older and more tired. Nothing is booked in stone, I can cancel, I will cancel if that is what you want. He reached across the table, but I pulled my hand away. I wish I could tell you, I held my ground with grace. The truth is I teetered, because part of me still wanted him to choose us. Where does she live? I asked it quietly because volume did not change the cut. A few hours away, same region, it is not like she is overseas. So this was not some fantasy locked behind a screen. If they wanted to, they could make this very real with one drive. Does she know you are asking for an open setup, or does she think you are just done with me? He opened his mouth, shut it, then nodded toward the chat window. She knows I am married, she thinks you do not care about me anymore, I told her we were in a rough spot. There it was, the cleaned-up version of our life he had sold to her. I stood up so fast the chair scraped, nerves buzzing in my legs. Good, then she can hear my side too. Later that night he logged back on like nothing had detonated. He promised we would talk properly after his matches, which felt like a joke. I watched him disappear into his game world again, and something inside me snapped into focus. If he would not bring her into the light, I would. When he finally crashed in bed, exhausted from shouting into his mic, I stayed awake. His breathing evened out, slow and heavy, while I stared at the ceiling. I slipped out quietly after a while and grabbed my own phone from the dresser. His laptop still rested on the table where our argument had cooled. I opened Discord on my profile and searched for her handle. It popped up fast, same icon I had seen near his name. My fingers hovered over the message box, heart pounding in my throat. Then I typed before I could overthink it. "Hi, this is his wife, I saw the messages and we need to talk." I watched the words sit there for a second before hitting send. Instant regret washed over me, followed by a strange wave of relief. The secret was no longer just theirs, now it had my name on it. She answered quicker than I expected, a small ping in the corner. "Hey, I did not know you knew about me, are you okay?" That first line threw me off because it sounded worried, not smug. I had prepared for a villain, not a person who asked if I was all right. "You tell me, do you usually fall for married men on voice chat?" That came out harsher than planned, and I left it there anyway. "Look, he told me you two were basically done, I thought you were just roommates." Reading that, I felt my stomach twist in a new direction. He had not just lied to me, he had spun a whole story for her too. I rubbed my forehead, trying to relieve the pounding behind my eyes. "So you thought I was just what, a landlord with a ring?" There was a long pause after that, dots blinking, vanishing, then returning. "I thought you did not want him, I thought I was helping him feel less alone." That line landed strange because it was selfish and naive and still oddly sincere. "I am not excusing myself, I know this is messed up, I just need you to know he made it sound like you would not care if we got close." It hurt hearing that, but it also filled in blanks I had been circling. "Have you seen each other in person? I want details, not vague nonsense." She answered with another quick ping, almost like she had rehearsed this too. "No, we tried to plan things, the only thing solid is that convention he keeps hyping, I did not buy anything yet." So the reservations were all on his end, like a secret project. We kept typing, both of us careful and blunt at the same time. I asked if they had gone further than flirty calls and spicy chats. She admitted there were nights where they crossed every line except a plane ticket. My hands shook, but at least now the ghost images in my head had a border. Then she asked a question I was not ready for. "Do you still want him? Because I do, but I will back off if you really want to fix things." I stared at that message so long the screen dimmed once. Her willingness to step aside hurt in a completely different way. You would think the answer would be simple at that point. Husband lies for months, plans trips, builds a secret romance, case closed. Instead, my chest felt split between anger, history, fear, and some stubborn attachment. I typed and erased 3 replies before leaving her on read. That night ended with all 3 of us in separate worlds. Her waiting at a screen, him snoring through his guilt, me sitting on the floor with my back against the bed. I realized the real question had changed without me noticing. It was no longer will he pick her or me, but why am I still standing in front of this choice at all? I dropped a sheet of paper between us and pushed his controller away with it. "If you want this mess, these are the conditions." He froze mid-button press, thumb still hovering over plastic. For a second he looked from the list to my face like I had pulled a weapon. Across the top I had written one sentence in block letters. "If we stay married, we both follow every rule." His eyes moved line by line, lips moving without sound. I watched him read like my whole future depended on his next breath. No overnights, no disappearing, no hiding messages. He repeated bits of it under his breath, testing the words. "Full transparency, nobody moves in, nobody trashes the other partner." He glanced up at that last one and shifted in his chair. "This is intense," he leaned back and rubbed his neck. "It is pathetic we even need a contract to keep basic respect." I kept my hands flat on the table so he would not see the shaking. "These are the only terms where I even try this circus." He stared at me for a long time, eyes glassy and too bright. "I do not want to lose you over this, I meant that part." His voice had that cracked edge that used to get to me. Back then, I still wanted to believe there was a version where we survived. So we both get the option, not just you. I tapped the line about mutual freedom with my fingernail. Whatever you expect for yourself goes for me too. I made myself hold his gaze until he blinked first. Fine, fair, if I see her you can date too. He said it fast, like ripping a bandage. I heard the tremor under the bravado though. He wanted access without any real competition, that much was clear. One more thing, if you lie this experiment ends on the spot. He dragged in a deep breath, chest rising, then gave a slow nod. No cheating on the agreement, no secret trips, no extra people. It sounded ridiculous out loud, like we were stacking locks on a door he had already kicked open. People online talk about these arrangements like they are edgy but enlightened. What they skip is the part where you negotiate your own pain tolerance in bullet points. I was trying to build a cage around something that I'll read. Why lived outside? I did not see that clearly then, but it was already true. When are you planning to see her? I pointed at his phone on the table. He slid it toward him and unlocked it with a quiet sigh. She is free next weekend, we thought we could meet halfway. Just like that, my week snapped into a countdown I had not agreed to emotionally. Public place, you go there, you come back here, no hotels. I ticked these off on my fingers like I was booking a plumber. He nodded along, eager now that the door was opening. We will grab dinner, maybe walk around a bit, nothing wild. That phrase, nothing wild, sat between us like a joke I refused to laugh at. I want you home by 11, not midnight, not later, 11. He smirked a little at the tone, like I was giving a teenager curfew. If he heard how much fear sat under that rule, he ignored it. The week leading up to that night stretched and snapped in weird places. Every time his phone buzzed, my lungs paused. He tried to act casual, but he was glowing, lighter on his feet. You do not need a romance novel to spot infatuation in your own kitchen. I watched him type to her while sitting beside me on the couch. His thumbs danced over the screen, then he tucked it half under his leg. Whenever I glanced over, the conversation conveniently jumped to some innocent topic. He had gotten better at hiding, just not good enough. I also did my homework because I refused to go into this blind. I devoured articles about ethical non-monogamy late at night with gritty eyes. Every guide screamed about communication, boundaries, mutual enthusiasm. We had half of one, a dented version of another, and zero true excitement from me. Some advice pages said jealousy was normal and could be managed. Others warned that using open as a bandage for betrayal was a disaster. Reading those lines, I felt called out by strangers who would never know my name. I still pushed forward, stubborn and scared and too proud to walk away yet. The night of the meetup, he actually picked out clothes with care. He checked his reflection, smoothing the same spot twice. I watched from the doorway, arms folded, trying not to show how much it bothered me. He had not fussed that much for anything with me in a long time. Remember the plan, my voice came out steady, which surprised me. Public space, no room, no turning off your location. He slipped his watch on and avoided eye contact for a beat. Of course, I told you I am not trying to be shady. We stood by the door longer than needed, keys cold in his hand. You can still back out, you can message her and cancel. The words came out softer than I intended, almost pleading. He swallowed, then shook his head with a little twist of his mouth. If I do not at least see her once, I will always wonder. That line lodged somewhere under my ribs. It turned our marriage into an obstacle to his curiosity. I stepped aside and let him pass, which is a choice that still stings. After he drove off, I paced through rooms that suddenly felt unfamiliar. His location dot on my screen crawled along the highway. I checked it too often, like it could tell me what they were saying. Somewhere between our place and that town, my appetite evaporated completely. At first the dot stayed live like we had agreed. Then right around the time he was supposed to arrive, it froze. A minute later his phone went offline in the app. My heart dropped so fast I had to sit down before my legs buckled. I stared at that tiny grayed-out circle, daring it to move again. He had promised not to hide, yet somehow the signal died exactly then. I tried to rationalize, bad reception, app glitch, dead battery. You can guess which explanation my gut believed. I forced myself not to start a call barrage. Instead, I sent one message. Your sharing cut out, everything okay? The text went through, no delivery problem, no answer. Every minute after that stretched longer than the last. I turned the TV on with the volume low and heard none of it. My brain played its own horror reel of them at some hotel. There is no polite word for the images that ran through my head. He finally messaged close to 10. Sorry, service sucks here, we are grabbing dessert, then I will head back. I stared at that line, reading between each word. Dessert was not technically against any rule, but the timing tasted off. Home by 11, do not forget. My thumbs shook as I typed it, but I did not soften the tone. He answered with a thumbs up emoji and nothing else. That tiny icon made me feel like a managing parent, not a partner. 11 came and went. At 11:15, I paced near the door. At 11:30, I started composing worst-case scenarios and angry speeches. He walked in at almost midnight, smelling like someone else's soap. Hey, relax, traffic was trash. He toed his shoes off, shrugging his jacket. His smile was loose, almost dopey, like he was still H. Alf there. I watched him drop his keys, watched his shoulders sink in a satisfied way. That relaxed posture told me more than any excuse he could offer. You broke the first rule on the first night. I crossed my arms so I would not reach out and shake him. It was 30 minutes, come on, I am here, right? He tossed his bag into the corner and reached for me like nothing was wrong. I stepped back and he froze with his arms half open. Did you stay in some room with her? He blinked, thrown by the direct question. No, we stayed at the restaurant, then we walked, that is all. Did you touch her? The silence after that was louder than yelling. His gaze skittered away, then returned. We kissed for a second, maybe a little more, I am not going to lie. The ground did an ugly tilt in my chest. You told me you wanted emotional space, not a full physical thing. He ran a hand through his hair and let out a tired breath. It is different in person, it just happened, I did not plan it. There it was again, that phrase he used whenever choices got uncomfortable. Just happened. As if lips and hands had minds of their own. I could practically hear my own respect for him drop a notch. I need you to understand something. My voice came out slow, every word heavy. Every time you say it just happened, what I hear is you did not stop yourself. He looked annoyed now, which added insult to injury. I am trying to be open with you, and you are attacking me. He grabbed a glass and filled it like he had endured some hardship. If you want this, you cannot freak out every time we connect. We, the pronoun, made my skin crawl. I want you to pick a lane, that is what I want. My laugh came out rough and humorless. You keep talking like you are noble for confessing after the damage. He drank half the glass, then set it down harder than necessary. We circled each other verbally for another hour. He insisted it was still early, that these feelings needed room to settle. I kept hearing my own voice sound smaller every time I tried to object. Eventually exhaustion won and we retreated to bed, bodies far apart. Over the next weeks, the open structure unfolded exactly how you probably expect. He spent more nights glued to his headset, whispering to her between games. He clung to his phone with a new intensity, screen always tilted from my line of sight. He started canceling plans with me by blaming last-minute raid schedules. I tried to use my side of the deal once, mostly out of wounded pride. A coworker had always been friendly, easy to talk to. I agreed to meet him for coffee after work, telling myself I was being modern. In reality, I was walking into that shop with a stomach full of knots. The guy was perfectly decent. He asked about my hobbies, cracked mild jokes, listened attentively. I answered on autopilot, nodding, trying to feel even a flicker of interest. All I could think was that my husband was probably glowing at another woman while I sat across from this stranger. When the cup was empty, I excused myself early. In my car outside, the tears came in one hard rush. Not even because of Evan specifically at that moment. More because I finally understood I did not want a roster, I wanted my marriage back. When I walked through our front door that evening, he barely glanced up. Headset on, voice bright, jokes flying. I stood there, coat still on, waiting for him to notice I was wrecked. He threw me a quick thumbs up without pausing his game. Later that night, I tried again to talk like a partner instead of a referee. This setup is shredding me, I cannot keep pretending this is normal. He muted his mic and swiveled his chair slowly. You went out too, right? That is the whole point, this is supposed to even things out. It does not feel even when your whole heart is over there and I am just proving I can keep up. He rubbed his thigh restless, wanting back into the match. You agreed to this, you wrote the rules, now you are mad they apply. That sentence landed harder than he probably intended. Yes, I had drafted the rules. I had also done it with a metaphorical gun pressed to my life. Back then I still could not say that out loud. So I swallowed it and watched him log back in. The final crack for me came on a random Friday. We had planned an actual date night, just us, no screens. He promised to log off early to focus fully. I clung to that plan all week, like one decent evening might still prove something. An hour before we were supposed to leave, he poked his head into the room. Her schedule changed, she can only get on tonight, can we move our thing to tomorrow? He sounded apologetic, but his eyes were already back on his setup. My jaw clenched so hard my teeth hurt. You are ditching me for her again. He flinched at the word ditching, then shrugged one shoulder. We hang out all the time, she and I only get windows here and there. That why hierarchy of importance sat there between us, undisguised. I laughed once, short and sharp, because the alternative was screaming. I got it, I am the default, she is the event. His face closed off a little at that, annoyed by my summary. You are twisting everything into the worst possible version. Tell me I am wrong. I stepped closer, daring him with my eyes. He opened his mouth, then shut it again when nothing convincing came. Instead, he reached for his headset like that conversation bored him. Watching that motion did something final to my insides. It was such a small thing. Just him choosing the game over the discussion again. But it felt like watching him pick a side while insisting he was neutral. I did not blow up. I did not throw his gear or make some cinematic scene. Instead, I walked to the bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the floor. My hands were steady for the first time in weeks. You know that weird calm that hits right before you change something huge? It slid over me then. I realized I was the only one still treating our agreement like a promise. He was treating it like a pass. Out there in the other room, I heard his laughter rise over the game. Somewhere on another screen, she was probably laughing too. In that moment, alone on the carpet, I was done pretending I was okay. I just had not told him yet that the experiment was already dead in my mind. I am happier with hers. Those words hit the table between us harder than my hand ever could. We were in the kitchen, 2 plates between us untouched. My fork froze halfway to my mouth and my brain just blanked. He tried to keep talking, but honestly, everything after that sounded like static. Say that again, my voice sounded strange, almost quiet. He pushed his chair back an inch, like he wanted more space. With her it is easy, with you it is always a fight lately. That little word lately burned, because I knew exactly when that shift started. You mean since you dragged another woman into our marriage? I dropped the fork and it clattered way too loud. He flinched, then rolled his eyes, which nearly sent me across the table. You never listen, you were distant way before she showed up. I stood up so fast the chair legs screeched. You are really going to rewrite history to protect your crush. He shoved his plate away, frustrated, jaw tight. I am trying to tell you how I feel, you twist everything into accusations. Fine, I will make this simple for you then. My hand stopped shaking, which is how I knew I was done. We close the marriage and you cut contact with her completely. I held up one finger, or we end this on paper and you chase your happiness. He laughed once, short and disbelieving, then saw I was serious. You cannot actually expect me to erase her from my life. You already erased me from half of yours, I am just catching up. That line left my mouth before I could soften it, and I did not take it back. He rubbed his face hard, palms dragging down slow. Can you stop talking like this is black and white? This is us or not us, that is as clear as it gets. I leaned on the counter so I would not step closer and start yelling. You would really blow up our whole life over one connection. He stared at me like I was dropping the bomb, not responding to his. No, you already cracked it open, I am deciding whether I stay under the rubble. My chest felt tight, but my mind had never been clearer. Why do you always talk like you are innocent in this? He gestured toward me, eyes glossy, voice edging louder. You checked my stuff, you stalked our messages, you broke trust too. He clung to that word like it was a shield. I snooped to confirm the affair that already existed. I kept my tone steady, each word clipped. If there had been nothing, we would not be here at all. He did not argue that point, and the silence around it said enough. We stood facing each other, the room weirdly small suddenly. I am not ready to cut her off, I cannot just drop her. His voice finally softened, and that softness hurt worse. Then you are ready to lose me, because those cannot both be true. He stared at the floor for a long stretch, breathing shallow. You know that moment when you watch someone choose, and you already know the answer. I felt that crawl up my spine before he even opened his mouth. When he finally spoke, he did not look at me. I do not want to stop talking to her. He sounded exhausted, like he had climbed some huge mountain. It was just one sentence, but it cut everything else away. There it was, his priority, naked and simple. Okay, my voice surprised me, it came out almost calm. He looked up fast, thrown by how fast I accepted it. Okay, what? He gripped the edge of the table, knuckles pale. Okay, I will call a lawyer and we will split. I thought he would explode. Instead, he sagged into the chair like his strings had been cut. You are serious? His eyes searched my face like he might find a loophole. I am tired of begging you to treat me like a choice. He started bargaining then, panic finally kicking in. Maybe we could slow it down instead, reduce contact, just not cut it. I raised a hand and his words trailed off. I am not negotiating my own humiliation anymore. We argued in circles for another hour. He tried different angles, blame, pity, nostalgia. Every tactic bounced off the same wall inside me. Once I said divorce out loud, something solid locked into place. At some point he grabbed his headset, almost out of habit. Do not you dare log on right now, my voice cracked sharp. I need to clear my head, the guys are waiting. I stared at him, stunned he could even think about queuing up mid-collapse. This is exactly the problem, you run into the game every time it gets hard. He set the headset down finally, like it weighed a ton. You want me to sit here and watch you hate me? I want you to sit here and feel what you did at least once. I walked out before he could answer because I was done spilling explanations. In the bedroom, I grabbed a notepad and started a list. Bank accounts, car, lease, little practical things that made everything real. Writing them down felt colder than any fight we had ever had. The next morning, I called an attorney during my break. I heard my own voice describe the situation in clipped phrases. No dramatic speech, just facts about messages and meetups and open lines crossed. When I hung up, my hands shook so much I had to sit on the edge of the bed. He hovered in the doorway when he found out I had made the call. You actually went through with it already, you did not even warn me. I warned you when I gave you the two options you picked. He leaned his head against the frame, looking tired and weirdly young. Can we at least try counseling before we nuke everything? That suggestion would have gutted me a month earlier. Now it just sounded like he wanted another delay. We cannot rebuild on top of an active affair, that is not therapy, that is cosplay. He huffed out a bitter laugh at that word. You always have jokes when you are destroying things. You cracked the foundation, I am just signing the paperwork. He did not have an answer for that, and the quiet after held more truth than any argument. Telling my family was a fresh kind of awful. I kept it basic over the phone, no deep details. He fell for someone else and wants to keep both lives, I am not doing that. Hearing myself explain it that plain somehow made it easier to stand by. Friends reacted how you probably imagine. Some wanted to egg his car, some bad-mouthed her, some tried to play neutral. The only reaction that really stuck was one simple line. You are not crazy for refusing to stay second in your own marriage. Packing my stuff came in waves. First the obvious things, clothes, personal documents, favorite mug. Then the sentimental landmines, trip souvenirs, photos, little gifts from old holidays. Every object I touched carried two memories now, the sweet one and the sour one. He offered to help box things up once, hovering near the closet. This is not what I wanted, you know that right. I folded a shirt and laid it flat in the suitcase. You wanted to have everything, this is what that gamble cost. We argued less and less as the logistics rolled forward. Cold conversations about timing, signatures, who stays, who goes. Sometimes he would look at me like he wanted to call the whole thing off. Then his phone would light up with her name and his expression shifted. The day I moved into the new place, he carried one of the lighter boxes to the car. At the trunk he paused, fingers resting on the edge. You do not have to do this today, we could slow down, think more. Slow down sounded like code for wait while I juggle you and her. I already thought more, that is the problem. I took the box from his hands and set it beside the others. He nodded once, jaw tight, eyes shiny and furious. Then he turned and walked back toward the building without looking over his shoulder. The new apartment was smaller but quiet. No constant clicking from another room, no random shouts into a headset. The silence felt heavy at first, like an empty stage. Then slowly it started feeling like space to breathe. On the second night there, I opened my laptop out of habit. My fingers hovered over a streaming site, then shifted to a game launcher instead. I re-downloaded a game I used to love before his world swallowed it. Watching the progress bar crawl felt weirdly symbolic, and yes, I hear how corny that sounds. When it finished, I logged in and created a fresh profile. New username, nothing tied to him or us or that shared history. The opening tutorial popped up, simple and familiar. For the first time in months, I clicked ready without checking who else was online. I played alone, headset O. And no chat with strangers, just me and the mission. My mind kept trying to drift back to him and her, to what they might be doing. Each time that happened, I focused harder on the next objective. It was a small, almost silly act, but it belonged only to me. Here is the part I did not expect. Somewhere between levels, I caught myself smiling, like actually smiling. Not because of a person, not because someone chose me, just because I cleared something tough. It was quick, but it was real, and it startled me more than any fight we had. I am not going to pretend I walked away healed and glowing. Grief still hit in waves, especially late at night when the apartment felt too empty. Sometimes I would grab my phone, half ready to text him something stupid and familiar. Then I would remember that he chose her even when I gave him an out. That memory keeps me from dialing. Not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. You can love someone and still recognize they are bad for your sanity. Leaving was the first time in this whole story that I actually picked myself.